All right, welcome. Today we are diving headfirst into a topic that feels like it's been ripped straight out of a sci-fi movie, literally hacking reality. We're going to look at two super fascinating and totally different ways of thinking about this. Ideas that suggest the rules of our world and even our own minds might just be a little more bendable than we've been led to believe. So it all boils down to this one question. Are the rules of reality actually breakable? We're going to tackle this from two angles. First, we'll imagine the universe is a giant computer program and see if we can find a bug in the code, a jailbreak. Then we're going to flip the script and look inward to see if maybe we can hack our own perception to see things that shouldn't be possible. Let's get into it. So our first approach comes from a paper that takes the whole simulation hypothesis really, really seriously. It basically asks a question you'd expect from a cybersecurity expert. If we're all living inside a simulation, is there a way to hack ourselves out? Okay, so just so we're all on the same page, the simulation hypothesis is this idea that everything you see, everything you feel and experience is actually part of an incredibly advanced computer program. So think of it less like a fun philosophical thought experiment and more like a technical problem. Because if the universe runs on code, then like any piece of software, it just might have some exploits. And this is the exact question right at the heart of the paper. See, it's not trying to prove we're in a simulation. It just assumes we are and then asks, okay, now what? And for a computer scientist, the now what is pretty obvious. You start poking around looking for a way out. You start hunting for that jailbreak. So how in the world would you even begin to jailbreak the entire universe? Well, the paper uses this fantastic analogy from a world a lot of us know pretty well, video games. The whole idea of a jailbreak in a video game usually involves doing this really bizarre, super specific sequence of actions, right? You're exploiting a bug in the code that lets you do things the game developers never ever intended, maybe even running your own code from inside the game itself. And this is where it gets wonderfully weird. The paper suggests that if there is an escape hatch from our reality, it might require a similar set of precise, totally non-intuitive actions. It wouldn't be about using brute force. It'd be about finding this hidden key, a sequence of events so specific that to anyone watching, it would look like a magic spell. And I mean, just look at this. This perfectly illustrates the point. The paper actually puts these two things right next to each other. On the left, you've got the real steps to jailbreak the game's Super Mario World. And on the right, an ancient magical spell. The similarity is kind of uncanny, isn't it? Both of them need this rigid, seemingly nonsensical list of things you have to do to trigger some big effect in a system where you don't really control the rules. Wild. Okay, so the idea that magic spells could just be cosmic cheat codes is a lot to take in. But what if we've been looking in completely the wrong place? What if the real glitch isn't in the universe's code, but in our own? Our second source explores an internal hack, the idea that you don't need to change the world if you can just rewire your brain to see it differently. A really fascinating new study is proposing something that is frankly mind-bending, that our brains can unconsciously learn things that should be impossible to learn. They're calling it quantum-like learning, which is just a fancy way of saying our minds might be able to connect a cause to an effect even when they don't happen at the same time or in the same place. So your first thought is probably, how on earth do you even test for something like that? Well, the way they set up the experiment is incredibly clever. It's all about creating a situation where your conscious mind has no way of learning a pattern, just to see if your unconscious can still pick up the signal. Okay, let me walk you through this. First, they got everyone's mind ready. One group just rested with their eyes closed to get into what's called an alpha brainwave state. That calm, relaxed, meditative vibe. The other group, the control group, did the opposite. They kept their brains super busy by solving Sudoku puzzles. Then, the test. They'd flash an emotional picture on a screen so fast that it was basically invisible, and then ask the person to guess which way a bunch of random dots were about to move. But here's the secret sauce. That invisible image was actually linked to the right answer. A positive image meant the dots would go right, a negative image meant they'd go left. And the results were staggering. Just wow. The control group, the ones with the busy Sudoku brains, they got about 71 answers right, which is already pretty good, better than just guessing. But the group that started from that calm, resting state, they got an average of 81 right. That is a massive jump. Let's put that in perspective. That 10-point difference works out to a 14% increase in accuracy. So the group with the resting minds was significantly better at predicting a supposedly random future event.
They had, somehow, without even realizing it, learned the hidden rule.
So the big takeaway here is that a quiet, resting brain seems to be able to tune into information that a busy, active brain just completely misses. It's like it learned a connection that, according to all the classic rules of learning, should be impossible to learn because you never consciously saw the cause, the image, and the effect, the moving dots, at the same time.
So now we've got these two wild, seemingly disconnected ideas on the table. One is an external hack, treating the universe like a computer. The other is an internal hack, treating our brain like some kind of special receiver that can be retuned. So what in the world do they have in common? Let's tie it all together. This slide really just lays it all out, doesn't it? You have the external hack, which is all about treating the universe like software and hunting for a bug in the physics. And then you have the internal hack, which is about finding a bug in our own cognitive software, a weird quirk that lets our brains get around the normal rules of cause and effect.
When you really get down to it, what connects these two very different approaches is that they're both about hunting for loopholes. It doesn't matter if it's a physicist looking for a bug in the source code of the entire universe or a neuroscientist finding a hidden feature in our brain's operating system. At the end of the day, they're both doing the same thing. They're looking for glitches in the code.
All of this, naturally, brings us to that ultimate question. If the rules really aren't as solid as we thought they were, what does that even say about reality itself?
And that is really the heart of it all. Whether reality is a giant simulation you can jailbreak, or your own mind has these untapped, almost quantum-like abilities, both ideas point to the same really thrilling conclusion. The line between what we think is possible and what's actually possible might be a whole lot blurrier than we imagine. So I'll just leave you with this final thought to chew on. If you personally discovered one of these glitches, a real-life cheat code for reality, what would you do? Would you tell everyone and risk crashing the whole system? Or would you just quietly use it for yourself? It's a fun question to think about. Thanks for tuning in.